Welcome to the MasterMind Library. They call me Ferdinand, the bringer of balance, leader of many disciplines, and one of your hosts of the MasterMind Library, the home of the MasterMind Book Club on FHTII.com. Thank you for introducing our live audience. And this is Trigger, our co-host of the MasterMind Library. So right now he is indulging in some grapes, which is one of his favorites. As you can see, yeah, he loves grapes. So we are on episode 131 of the MasterMind Library, and we are still in Booker T. Washington's own story of his life and works, his autobiography. Are you enjoying those grapes? You don't like them? You want to give them back? Want to give me the grapes back? Oh, so you do like the grapes? Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's good. I'm glad you like them. Okay. All right. So, yes. All right. We'll get back to the MasterMind Library. Gotcha. All right. So let's go ahead and move to where we need to be in the book. Chapter 13, Urge for Cabinet Position. And all right, Emino. Yeah, all that. All that. Read. Okay. Are you going to do some reading today? Okay. All right. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear it. Okay. So let's make this a little bit larger for everybody, and then I'm going to go ahead and get started. Urge for a cabinet position. Soon after the election of Mayor McKinley to the office of president in 1896, the Washington Post, to the surprise of nearly everybody, came out with a strong editorial urging the president-elect to give me a place in his cabinet. The name of the late Honorable B.K. Bruce was also suggested in the same connection. This editorial created quite a journalistic discussion which extended to all parts of the country. I give a few extracts from newspapers that may indicate the character of this discussion. The Washington Post, which I think was the first paper to discuss the propriety of my selection as a cabinet officer, opened the discussion with the following article. There is one problem which Mr. McKinley, if he be a just and grateful man, as we think he is, will have to consider, and consider very seriously. We have in mind the problem of what the Republican Party proposes to do by way of recognizing its obligations to the colored voter. That party has owed much to the loyal and unselfish devotion of the race in times gone by, but never so much as in the campaign which it has conducted to a triumphant conclusion. What now will Mr. McKinley do to testify his gratitude? At every stage of his personal fight, Mr. McKinley has been indebted to the Negro. It was the Negro contingent at St. Louis that made his nomination certain. It was the Negro's firm stand for gold that forced the sound money issue upon the convention. It was the Negro's vote in such states as Maryland, West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, Delaware, and Indiana that made his victory possible. We all know now that McKinley would have had next to no chance at all had not the St. Louis Convention declared emphatically and unequivocally for the gold standard. As between a simple declaration for tariff revision on the one hand and for free silver coinage without tariff disturbances on the other, the great eastern and middle states would have had but a languid choice. It was the solid, sound money front presented by the colored delegates that compelled the adoption of the gold clause in the platform and furnished Mr. McKinley with the issue upon which he rallied to his banner the merchants, the manufacturers, and the moneyed corporations throughout the land. Mr. McKinley could not have been elected but by the course pursued by the Negroes before, during, and after the assembling of the St. Louis Convention. Now, in what fashion does he intend to recognize and reward their service? It seems to us that at least one cabinet position should be given to the race. Let us say the portfolio of agriculture, for example, there are many colored men of notable attainments, of large experience in public life, and of the highest personal character, eminently qualified to discharge the duties of this office with credit to the administration and honor to themselves. We might name such men as Honorable B.K. Bruce and Professor Booker T. Washington. Mr. Bruce has been a senator of the United States, and it may be truly said of him that in that capacity he won the aspect and esteem of all his colleagues and served his country with distinction. He also served a term as Register of the Treasury and another as Recorder of Deeds under the district government, always with notable ability. Professor Washington is universally recognized as one of the foremost educators in the country. The institute over which he presides at Tuskegee, Alabama, has become conspicuous under his management and is today ranked with the most useful and admirable of our seats of learning. The appointment of either of these gentlemen to the control of one of the executive departments will be a graceful acknowledgement of the obligations which the Republican Party has incurred and which we should think it would be anxious to discharge. We do not limit Mr. McKinley to these two. There are many other colored men abundantly fitted for a cabinet position. It happens simply that ex-Senator Bruce and Professor Washington occurred to us first in running over the list of eligibles. Returning to the abstract proposition, however, it is clear to us that Mr. McKinley owes his election first to the fidelity and wise foresight of the colored delegates at St. Louis, and secondly to the loyal support of the colored voters in half a dozen states necessary to his election, which could not possibly have been carried for him without their aid. He is under obligations which, as a man of feeling, he cannot well ignore, and which he could most felicitously acknowledge by asking some truly representative Negro to enter his official family. The Canton, Ohio Repository, after discussing in a long article a number of men, white and black, suitable for cabinet material, concluded as follows. Another able man is Professor Booker T. Washington, the head of the Tuskegee Normal School of Alabama. Mr. Washington has been spoken of for Secretary of Agriculture under the new administration and is one of the foremost leaders of the colored race in this country and a pioneer in the industrial and educational development of his people. He is one of the younger leaders of the colored people and fully understands their needs and hopes. His address at the opening of the Atlanta Exposition has been favorably commented upon by all classes of people. He is the originator of the Normal College and is doing a great work in the South. There were other articles of similar character in other papers at the time, and still others, of course, that oppose vigorously the idea of placing a Negro in the cabinet of the President of the United States. In a speech delivered by the colored citizens of Boston, move your pillow back and be still, or you can sit right there. In a speech delivered to the colored citizens of Boston, Massachusetts, soon after this discussion began, I openly declared that under no circumstances would I accept a political appointment that would result in my turning aside from the work which I had begun at Tuskegee. In the spring of 1897, I was invited by Dr. Francis J. Grimke, pastor of the 15th Street Presbyterian Church, Washington, D.C., to deliver an address in his church. My subject on the occasion was the things in hand. It was just after President McKinley had been inaugurated as president. Washington was full of people from all over the country, and among them, not a few colored people seeking office. At this meeting, I urged as strongly as I could that the colored people should cease depending so much on office and give more attention to industrial or business enterprises. This created a wide discussion among the colored people, especially among those who were in Washington seeking office. I have always held that the Negro has the same right to aspire to political or appointive offices as the white man has. But in our present condition, we will be more sure of laying a foundation that will result in permanent political recognition in the future by giving attention at the present time in a very large measure to education, business, and industry than merely by seeking political office. I favor that the Negro give up no right guaranteed to him by the Constitution of the United States. But I am also convinced that the way for him to secure the opportunity to exercise his rights guaranteed to him by the Constitution is to make himself the most useful and independent citizen in his community. In certain quarters, for a number of years, a certain element of our people have opposed my plan for the elevation of the Negroes on the ground that they have felt that I was not in favor of the Negro receiving a college education. This is an error. I do not oppose college education for our people, but I do urge that a larger percentage of our young men and women, whether educated in college or not, give the strength of their education in the direction of commercial or industrial development, just the same as the white man does. I have tried to show my approval of college education by giving as many college men as possible employment and have on our payroll at Tuskegee constantly from 15 to 20 men and women who have been educated at the leading colleges throughout the country. The best way to approve of college education is to give those educated at college something to do. The great need for the next 50 or 100 years among our people will be the sending out among them of men and women thoroughly equipped with academic and religious training, together with industrial or hand training, so that they can lead the masses to a betterment of their present industrial and material condition. The young white man who graduates at college, in 9 cases out of 10, finds a business waiting for him that he can enter into as soon as he gets his college diploma. This business has been created by his father, grandfather, or great grandfather years before. But the black boy graduating from college finds no business waiting for him. He must start a business for himself. Therefore, it is important in our present condition that the Negro be so educated along technical and industrial lines that he can found a business for himself. In the matter of technical or industrial education, the blacks are not keeping up with the whites. Every state has technical schools for white boys and girls, and we cannot expect to retain our hold on the industries of the South unless we give special attention to preparing ourselves for doing the best work. In too many cases, the Negro carpenter, the Negro blacksmith, the Negro contractor, and laundrywoman are being replaced by white people who have come into the South from the North. We can only retain our hold upon the industries of the South by putting into the field men and women of the highest intelligence and skill. We must learn to do the tasks about our door in a thorough manner, to do a common thing in an uncommon manner, to be sure that nobody else can improve on our work. And that concludes chapter 13. On our next chapter, on our next episode, we'll be talking about the Shaw Monument speech, the visit of Secretary James Wilson, and the letter to the Louisiana Convention. As I've said over and over again, y'all, this is some powerful material. Make sure you're checking it out. Booker T. Washington's own story of his life and work is one of those lessons that can help uplift a people. It can help uplift a nation, right? Because this is a story of someone truly uplifting themselves of their own bootstraps, getting up every day, putting in the real work, and eventually someone noticing, and then continuing to do it, and then eventually someone else noticing, and then continuing to do it, and eventually someone else noticing. And you being asked to do things that today are considered monumental. And the creation of Tuskegee University is definitely, in my opinion, monumental. That was a dangerous place for a group of people to be going to create a school. Even though Booker T. Washington speaks very highly in his autobiography about the help of those in the South, it was a dangerous location, because what was around Tuskegee was a bunch of different areas where they weren't too happy about a bunch of Asiatics or Black people learning how to read and write at the same levels of them, or learning higher levels, higher level education, right? Industrial education as well as higher education fused into one, right? And this is what Tuskegee University was in its beginning, in its forming. I'm not sure of what Tuskegee University is today. I would have to go and do some research. But Tuskegee is definitely a staple, on how it was created. If I was able to send my child to Tuskegee University to get educated, I would probably have to do a whole lot of prayer first, because we're talking about the South during the late 1800s. And yeah, so I have to do a lot of prayer, but I think that that would be one of the best places for my child if it wasn't so dangerous, because you're building a school. You're not just going to college. You're not just going to a university. You're building the university. So you get to be a part of the lineage of this university. You get to be a part of the history of this place. There's portions of this place that has to be named after you, because you helped make the bricks, and then you helped take the bricks and make the buildings. So this is a special book for me, especially since it was my grandmother's book, and I'm sitting in Mama Ann's chair right now. So thank you to everybody who consistently is tuning in and checking out Booker T. Washington's own story of his life and works. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take off. Y'all be blessed and expose your gift.